Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we're back at it with some grooves. This time we have Marcal and his groovy and Hypnotic Techno. Be sure to get the project file if you want to follow along with the tutorial. And again, I want to thank you so much for supporting the channel by liking, commenting and subscribing. And here we go. Okay, so for this track I've been using lots of different techniques. Some of them already show you that in my other groove videos. So I'm gonna use, of course, lots of percussions, drums to make some grooves, but I have also lots of textures and weird sounds that I create, either with granulators, with grain delays, sometimes with corpus or other stuff. I'm gonna show you all of this. So first, we're gonna start with the kick. So for this kick, I've been using several layers as usual. So I have my main kick layer that you have here, just a kick and a top kick. So something very close to a 909. We have just a layer of noise. We have some toms and some rolling pattern that I made with the kick. And a sine wave. And of course a rumble. I'm gonna go through all of these layers, withdrawing the group processing. So my first layer is my main kick. I'm using a Vengeance kick sample, which is a trancey kick. So it's something very simple. It's just a punch. There's no like other layers. And I'm gonna use the same thing as for the Claire video. So I'm gonna put an overdrive and then I'm gonna make sure I don't have those boxiness in the mid-range. And I'm gonna actually put another overdrive. So I make it more subby and a bit more with more low mids here. And then put another overdrive. Again, to have something even darker and more distorted. And I'm gonna put this, but this is only after I will put the group processing. This is really to withdraw some nasty resonances that you usually have at 200 Hertz. So for now, you can already hear there's a kind of boomy resonancy. On top of that, I'm using a top kick. So this is just a top kick layer, and I don't want something too much in the highs. I will lose that raw sound if I keep the high end. So that's why I keep only that mid-range, just to get a bit more punch. So this is my punch layer. For the noise, nothing special here. It's just a noise layer from an impact, from the tail of an impact. So it's very slight here because I don't have the... You see, it's just some noise like this, and it's just a cue so that I have only the high end. I tried with the sidechain, but I preferred without it, so to have a steady noise sound along with the kick. And then we have the offbeats. So for the offbeats, I have three elements. I have the tom, the rolling bass, and the reverb. So I'm gonna make a combination of a rolling kick like this and a tom. So for the rolling kick, it's the same kick sample, just that I withdraw the transient. Again, it would be a bit too hypnotic and I would lose the raw feeling if I keep the transient, so that's why I withdraw it. And then I think it's just the same processing because I've duplicated this. And for the pattern, I'm using a 16th pattern, but I withdraw the first note, that is with the same time of the kick. And in between those holes, I'm actually using the toms, so it kind of plays call and answer, like it's filling up the frequency spectrum. For the tom, the pattern, I put one in between with the kick, and I can do that because the tom is going to be higher in frequency and it doesn't clash in the sub. So it adds a bit of groove, and that's why I can put it at the same time with the kick that is here. And so for the tom, it's just a 909 tom, but I EQ heavily again to keep the raw feeling, and I have just a slight delay and reverb to make a bit of room so that it's not too dry. So all of this together, I have the punch and the rolling pattern. I'm gonna need then a sub. So for this, I'm using the same as the Schleyer video. So I'm using the FX Subverb, which is a sample from Ableton. It's actually very full. And I just tried different transposed. So for Schleyer, I think I've been using this one. And here I just made sure it was in the key of my kick. I wanted something the same key. And then it's just some processing to get something more compressed. Delays for the movement in the reverb. It adds a bit of room. And then just a sidechain, of course. And finally, I have this sine wave. So here it's filtered, but after it's gonna be full on, and it's just a sine, basic subsine preset from Ableton. Again, the overdrive and the same room as the reverb or the other channels, just to put a bit of room so that it's not dry. And here I sidechain. So on the sub, I only have this rolling pattern and the reverb. The rest here, it's high passed, and then I have my kick, and everything is sidechain. So all of this together gives me something very full, but I will distort it again with that big overdrive. So I make sure I don't go in the red with that utility. So I lower the volume before. It's just to make some gain staging. And after that, I'm just gonna boost the highs to get a bit more balance, more punch. See it really like glues together the whole thing and gives also that raw feeling. And that's it for the kick. So after my kick, I have some drums, some hats. So I have two groups. So I will have some open hats, some ride, some loops, and some hi-hats. So for this style, groovy style, usually you have some very sharp open hats. So something that's very clicky, like very short, and it bounces with the kick. It's really like a colon answer. You have also those bright reverbs that are very short, but really in the high end. So for this open hat, I have layered two samples. This one, so I'm using this preset from Ableton, which is really good for groovy techno. You see, it really gives that bright but short decay feeling. Here, just to master a bit the very high end. That was too harsh. And so I combine this with another one, another sample, which is more like a Perc, with the same reverb. And this one, you see, is more in the mid-range, while this one is more the high end. And I will put one in the right and the other in the left to have a bit of stereo. So all of this together gives me something more full that would cover the whole spectrum, and that works well with the kick. And I have just another slight reverb on the group to glue a bit the thing with the loop after, and the sidechain, of course. So for this loop, nothing special. I just chose a loop that I liked. I used that overdrive just to distort a little bit, but here is really the EQ. I had really too much low mids, and I just wanted the bright hats and the groove that comes with it. So yeah, sometimes it's good to throw a little loop like this. These are very effective. So that's it for this first group. For the second group, I have a hi-hat. So here, a little pattern with some velocity movement. Again, I'm choosing a very sharp, very short sample, and I control the attack because the transient was too clicky, so it's a good way also to make that go into the mix. And then I'm using the same bright reverb, bright O, and some sidechain again, because it was too clicky, too much mids. Here I just want something in the high end. Then I have a simple ride like this. So 99 ride with a simple pattern and some velocity movement. Nothing special, same reverb, same sidechain, and just some EQs. And withdraw that nasty resonancy here. And finally, at the drop, in the end, I have another loop to bring more intensity. Like this. And again, same very short reverb and sidechain and some EQs to balance things out. And that's pretty much it for my drums. So after that, I'm gonna see the Foleys. So it's actually some textures that I've created. So in his tracks, Marcal, I think, is using lots of textures in the background, either some weird sound or some more organic sounds. So I'm using Foleys or Percs or whatever. So if you don't have those kind of samples, you can just create one by recording yourself. Like take any object in your kitchen and just record some sound, and you will get these kind of samples. So I can show you these kind of things. And with these, you can create easily some textures just with some reverb to create some room, some big room, and some grain delays to create some movement, some delay actually. And you can also make move the different textures with some LFOs along with the track. So that's what I did. I created this kind of textures doing some call and answer. So actually the first pattern is those two that are organic sounds. So it's really like a call and answer. I have two Foley samples that goes through a reverb. I create some room a bit with that decay, and then it really creates the sound with those grain delays. Otherwise it's too, you see, it's too raw, it's too in front. So this really puts the grain delay, puts it in the background, and then the thing is moving because I can change the frequency slowly along with the track. And then I make sure I don't have the lows, of course, and sidechain. I do the same here, just with another sample, and you can actually try different setup for your grain delays. So for instance, I can add another one and create like a new texture. You can get this weird sound. You can also play with the transpose button to get a different pitch. So that's the first texture. And on top of that, I have another kind of call and answer with those two. Again, just with some different Foleys. So here you see I'm using like a Perc. So really get some really cool textures. And also, yeah, what's important is that I don't want the highs. Again, because it would be too much in the front of the mix, and it's more raw like this if I narrow a bit the sound. So all of this together is kind of creating the big background texture along with the kick. And it's gonna slowly evolve with the LFOs. And then I'm gonna have other sounds, other weird sounds with a bit more harmonics. So I have this weird resonance sound that I did. So for this one, I'm using a synth shot, and I'm creating already some weird chords, dissonant chords, with that MIDI tool in Ableton, +5, +6. Again, I'm using the grain delay, the reverb, and the groove eventually to have some room, and again to put it in the background. And I'm really creating the sound with that shifter and with that corpus. So you see it makes the sound resonate a bit. I have also this grain delay preset that's weird and that worked well. I'm also making sure I don't have too much transient. It was a bit too harsh, so that's why I've put the transient shaper. And then big reverb to get something very large. And again, getting the raw sound from this to keep the raw feeling. And here I had a big resonancy. So that's why I redraw this. And I also make it move in the background with the autopan. So that's one harmonic, and I have other harmonics. So I'm using here some FM synths. So any kind of FM or synth sample. So either you can create some dissonant sound with the chords, or you can just use a sample that's already like a bit weird. So usually those FM sounds are what works. And then creating that background room with the groove preset, full on, almost full on, and the reverb and some grain delay. And I have another one here. Here I have no grain delay, and on this one I have a grain delay. So I create those very close sound, but still different by having one without grain delay and one with a slight grain delay. It's actually very close from the real pitch here, you see. So I have these two elements, and that's it for my harmonics. I then have some percs. So for the percs, it's kind of treble sounds. So I'm using congas or cowbells. So creating this pattern. And what I do for this perc loop is just using the echo preset, and I also use this track from Audio React, which is very effective for my perc loops. I use it often, and it's very cool. It's just a combination of 2 delays and reverb, and it actually creates those cool delays with some texture. And I have another one here, but again with some tool from Audio React. This one is a perc loop, and it's just again delay, reverb. And I have also this echo preset. I make sure I withdraw a bit the resonancy. Like this, I make it wide with that utility. I withdraw the resonances with the D-Res. And here I use the automation to introduce that element before the drop and then full on at the drop. So you see like the kick is being high pass here. And then this element is coming, intensity is getting up with that automation, and then at the drop you have the full cowbell on. And so it creates those bright rhythmic sounds along with the kick. So on top of that, for my drop, the intensity is also going up with that Atmo. So I create the dissonant feeling again with the +5. So taking this root note +5, and I'm actually using like a vocal. I put it in the sustain mode in the sampler with some huge reverb, like 100%. So it creates directly that pad, that kind of Atmo. So you see it's just a pad like this, and you create the dissonant feeling with that +5, and just bringing up the intensity again with the automation, and at the drop the reverb is releasing, leaving us with the grooves. So pretty easy to make some Atmos. So you see you can use any kind of vocal, any kind of sample. This one, you see, you can instantly create those kind of Atmos with those huge reverbs. I also have this vocal, which is a bit weird. And so it was already a bit weird at first without the processing. So I chose it on purpose, but I create even more weirdness with that shifter. And creating something very large with the groove preset and the reverb. Very effective. And finally, I have a few more effects in the background, more like weird sounds, less organic compared to the Foleys, but this one is using the granulator. So this one is a kind of Perc. So I think I'm using the chords directly here. And here again, grain delay, combination of grain delay, granulator, any kind of raw sample, Perc sample, making the LFO move for the frequency, creating some space with the groove and side chaining. I do the same with that other one. This one, no granulator, so it's just an effects. So it's a kind of FM synth. I put a huge reverb on. And I create some movement and some weirdness with 2 grain delays. Sidechain again. And finally, the last one. Again, some effect in the granulator, a grain delay, big reverb, and sidechain. And so it's gonna fill up the background at different parts in the track. So you see here I have one here, one here, one here. So it's ready to cover the whole track with some effects in the background. These one are more steady. These 3 are more like randomly happening in the background. And finally, yeah, just a few effects to put more intensity at that drop with some sweep and a slight impact. And that's it for the track, guys. I hope you liked this tutorial. Thank you so much for the support, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.